Well, hello and welcome back. So this week I had the pleasure of talking with Kenzie Sitterud, who is a Denver artist who's very well known for creating immersive, large-scale installations and designed experiences that deal with the unease the queer community feels navigating the heteronormative world. And Kenzie is a designer and an artist and just a really cool person to chat with. They have an upcoming exhibition opening on April 28th at PlatteForum titled To Dusk, and this exhibition will be held at the PlatteForum Annex Gallery from 6 to 8 p.m., 3575 Ringsby Court, Unit 103 in Denver. And so in this episode, Kenzie and I really discussed some of the different elements of work that went into the exhibition and the different ways of thinking about their work that they explored and the different approaches that they took to kind of arrive at this place. And they also, so stay tuned because they also have another exhibition opening called To Dusk at Leon Gallery this summer. And these two exhibitions will be in conversation with each other and are sort of linked to Kenzie's past upbringing and what has kind of informed Kenzie as a person. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy hearing more about Kenzie's work and practice.
I'm very excited for the opening because I have an outfit. My son has an outfit. So I'm excited to have Maxon hit the scene a little bit and also just celebrate with all the interns, all the hard work, and just see all the people that I love. Hopefully all the people that I love can come and all the people that I like can come as well. So yeah, I am very excited. And the work, there's a few pieces that I'm like, whoa, that's very cool.
I'm excited to see them. Okay, so I wanted to start by saying I saw a performance of L.A. Samuelson at the Holiday Theater recently, and then they gave a little talk and they mentioned you as one of their influences, especially in regards to kind of queering a living space and thinking of the body in that way. And I thought that was really cool. But also when I saw your work for the first time, it helped me kind of reorient the way I was thinking about what that experience might be like as someone who's not queer, I guess. But I know that this body of work that you're currently showing and working on here at PlatteForum is very different. And so I wanted to ask you if you could talk about why you went in such a different direction with it.
I actually feel like this is the most queer that I've ever been because I did something very normative and which is against what the art world expects of me. I assume that I've been out there enough that they would expect a built environment that creates empathy for or a queer experience, showcasing that dysphoria of the queer experience in a heteronormative world. Well, this is the first time that I completely erased my identity as a queer person and just presenting myself as a person and getting down to just being a person. And that is something I've kind of been thinking about, especially with all this transphobic law and LGBTQ laws that are happening. I'm thinking wow, my practice is to create empathy or experience of the queer experience, but these people don't even think of us as human. So how do we really think about queerness in a space if you don't even think of us as human? And so a lot of this, so it is very queer in the fact that I did something very normative, but it's also I don't know, it's different. It kind of we'll dive into it a little bit more, but also I've been wearing this cowboy hat and just out in public, and I'll have my hipster clothes on and then this full-on cowboy hat. And even like queer people are looking at me weird. And so it's like really putting myself in, like, cause like Utah West, the Western and cowboys, and they're like they're supposedly, they just need to be a little bit more open-minded, but supposedly like anti-gay, and these rural or, anti-queer, anti-trans, but like I'm like kind of embracing my roots, and putting that hat on is spitting people out because they're like, this is not supposed to happen. What is going on? And even my friends they couldn't figure out who I was. Wow. Because I'm wearing a cowboy hat. So it's been kind of an experiment with the cowboy hat situation, but yeah, it's actually pretty queer.
That's a super performative aspect, I think, of like putting yourself in the role in a sense and walking around that way.
The role of the oppressor.
Yeah.
The role of the repressor.
Okay, so because this is a podcast and it's all audio, can you talk a little bit about what the visual differences are between just how you normally, or what you've been making versus like how this show might feel and look a little bit?
So to clarify, previous body of work compared to this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So visually they are very, they still have conversations to each other. There's high saturation of color. There's designed spaces and design experiences inside those spaces. But so my previous work is all in the house, and I'm building little sections of the house, one room at a time. I use high saturation colors that are juxtaposition of each other, so there's lots of vibration. I'm using color theory, which I'm still applying in this show. But instead of having a built environment, I'm using materials that I've never used before. So I wanted to really challenge myself as an artist to play, because I was getting so stuck in my box that it didn't feel fun for me anymore. So I wanted to, and I want to feel joy, and so I just challenged myself to use experimental packaging materials, and then thinking about space and how can we alter space to make it feel like fragments of my memories. I did three series of 3 paintings that are landscapes. So they look like traditional Western, not traditional, excuse me. They look like landscapes, but it's the horizons of the Utah desert in Green River, and it's not from a photograph. It's from my memories. I'm using contrasting colors. I'm using high saturation colors, but and then color theory. So it is still bouncing, and it is still related because of the color. And then another piece is called the LaCroix quilt, and I have used a LaCroix in the past, my illustrations, but this time, instead of creating something new, I just took the packaging of the LaCroix and I've built a quilt. That's my favorite piece, I guess, in the whole show. Then there's a whole sound piece. So sound is another part that I was a musician for 10 years and toured and did I was a musician, not a visual artist. Yeah. So I wanted to incorporate some my 10 years of experience of sound engineering into the show a little bit too. So I've activated a floor so that when you walk on it, it reflects your footsteps, kind of translating to being alone in a desert and walking and hearing your footsteps, because it's just so loud in the desert because nobody else is there, and there's canyons, and it's just, I don't know, it's really so I was trying to simulate that experience.
I love that. So why did you choose the desert?
Because I'm from the desert. Simone Dubois. Simone Dubois. De Dubois. Simone de Dubois. There we go. I was looking it up on YouTube on how to say that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have to do that sometimes.
Yeah, I believe that I got it right. So I've been like kind of just like reading and educating and listening to podcasts about like everything but what I normally do or listen to. And one of them is I really got into like philosophy. And oh boy, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm so curious too about your musical background. So I was just, no, I'm going to add a double question now. So like what instrument did you play?
Okay.
And why did you choose the desert specifically?
Okay. Those are two different
I know.
questions. Bonus question. No, what instrument I used to play? I still play. I still practice. I'm a drummer. I play the guitar. I sing. I pretty much can pick up the scales of any instrument I'm able to put my hands on, and then I play the piano. Like right now, my instrument is the piano.
Okay.
During the pandemic, I relearned how to play the piano, and I wrote an album. Yeah, and it's
Amazing.
pretty cool. I need to record the album. It's dark. It's
Okay.
really dark. But when I was performing, I performed under the name Hotel Radio, and I was a loop station artist. So I would play the guitar and the piano and record those, get loops going, have like some sort of percussion, and then I would sing on top of it, and then do live compositions on stage.
Wow.
Yeah, so as like a one person, I had accompaniments and always played with like classical instruments, or like my accompaniers were always like pianists or cellists, but the root of it was a loop station. That was the last act I was in.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Amazing.
Desert.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Because I grew up in Cleveland, Utah, and it's the desert. It's a high desert of Utah. It's a town of 400 people, and it's all LDS, and it's about an hour away from Moab and the Canyonlands. It's in the Canyonlands. It's rural. And I've really been thinking about, so back to Simone de Beauvoir. So, de Dubois. This philosopher, she talks about existentialism, and she's talking about like your authentic self and those like things that you cannot get away from. And during the pandemic, I really was, I challenged myself as like a white person in this country to like think about like my colonizer past, and did a bunch of research around the harm that was done in my inheritance. And so I've been really thinking about like the origin of self and my authentic self. And I think that's another part about like not just talking about queerness, is that I wanted to talk about like who I am as my authentic self to create a person, a human. Yeah, so I was really inspired by the desert. I think the desert colors have always been inspired by the desert. I always feel at home when I'm in the desert. Like I would be one of those, I'm probably going to be like one of those like 60-year-old people like living in the desert, just dirty and like making weird art, kind of grumpy.
That sounds awesome.
I know. Life goals. Yeah, so I'm just like really inspired by the desert. And then I really wanted to play with like fragments of like my childhood and like images of my childhood. The gallery is actually set up into a horizon of a sunset. And there's a poem that's going to be added to the end of the sunset that says, "To dusk, comma, I went to bed last night thinking it was the end of the world. The Lord must be on his way from dawn." And that's like, that little like moment captivates my whole childhood of always being fearful that the Lord was on its way because the sunsets were so brilliant in Utah.
Wow. So also was that passage something that you heard before? Was it as from a scripture? And I know that you had talked about having a Mormon background.
No, that's just like a poem that popped into my head. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it just kind of relates to how you felt and when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
I personally love the desert also. And there's something, and I did some backpacking in the desert, and there's something about just when the sun's going down and how it changes the colors of the cliffs and the rocks and the hoodoos. Is that what they're called? Like in the Canyonlands, those spires that kind of jut up, and yeah. So I think it's a really inspiring and beautiful place.
To that, there's a wall that's in the show, and it reflects. So, when the sun goes down and everything is quiet and pink, everything turns pink, or everything reflects the sunset, whatever is happening. So one of the walls is just this high saturation red, and it's reflecting onto the people to feel that experience of sunset in the desert.
I like that too, because it also, I feel like, can speak to how a landscape can change you and change the way that you view each other and yourself, or the way that you experience yourself even. So going back to your Mormon past, I'm curious, like, what specific stories kind of stood out for you, or that maybe exist for you within the exhibition?
Culturally Mormon.
Yeah, okay.
My dad is the evangelical pastor, and I was put into 98% Mormon area, and my whole family, well, one side of my family is all Mormon or LDS, and then we have like this small little section of the family that's like evangelical, and then the other side of the family are all LDS, so culturally Mormon.
What does LDS stand
LDS, or it's Mormon, Latter-day Saints, Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
Latter-day Saints. Yes. I wanted to talk about like a little part here is that To Dusk is more feminine Western, and then I'm about to go into a solo show at Leon Gallery in August that is called From Dawn, and that one's going to be more masculine Western. So they're talking to each other. So this one I wanted to really talk about like the Mormon cultural, some cultural events that happen within Mormonism. And I really could go deeper with it, but something that like Mormon women and still do really to this day, but definitely in my grandmother generation was quilts. And so I wanted to quilt, so I quilted. And so I'm kind of tying in that like that cultural heritage of quilting, and then you also like quilt as community. You quilt as like free time to pass the time. You quilt to give. Like there's so much that goes into quilting, and I thought, well, this is a community engaged like residency. So like quilting would be like a good one to work with, but additionally materials, but I think we're going to go into materials. But so culturally, I'm bringing in quilting for like my Mormon heritage, and then also like the Western, like that Utah Western cowboy kind of feel as well. But that's how I kind of tied in the Mormon heritage.
So do you have memories of your grandmother quilting, or quilting with your family?
My great grandma Wall, they would like set up in their basement, and all the aunties and great aunties would come together and quilt, like pretty like I think like once a week. And I remember her like basement, and it was dark and had all these little trinkets because they like traveled around the world and got trinkets, but they also had like this back room that was full of like canned goods. Actually, she canned her own goods, full of canned goods, peaches, anything, apples, tomatoes, all canned and hand canned. And her basement smelled like it fermented fruits and vegetables. I do recall that. And then I also had like this quilt that I carried around. I still have a little piece of it. because it just kind of like disintegrated through my 20s. That like I keep very close to me because my grandma made it and it was so soft, and I could always like feel like a lot of love from that quilt. And then I also have another quilt, on my other side, my grandma, on my dad's side, she was a heavy quilter. She did a ton of quilts. I wasn't super close with her though. That's a whole other story.
You painted a really beautiful picture, by the way, of your grandmother's basement and the quilting. So traditionally quilts are made with fabric, but yours is made with LaCroix packaging. So I'm curious what brought you to that material in particular and how you worked with it.
Yeah. Actually, 2 quilts were built. One is LaCroix packaging, and the second one is from packing supplies from Amazon boxes. So actually, that's actually how I kind of segued into this. Like, I didn't know what I was gonna make when I had so many ideas, and I pitched much different ideas when I did my interview for this residency. So I originally was thinking about talking about capitalism and how we let so many people die during COVID to keep capitalism alive. You know, keeping economy going and restaurants open and not really stopping the spread so that we could keep the beast alive. I didn't want to shame people for what they did or how they behaved, because we were just told what we're supposed to do. And so my original idea was filling the whole space with Amazon boxes. Then I remembered there was an exhibition at Black Cube that used Amazon boxes, and I was like, oh, can't do that. So I'm like playing with the box. I'm like, what can I do with this box? So I'm like folding it, I'm ripping it, I'm cutting it, and then I like just pull the packing material out, and I was like, oh, packaging material. Everybody has packaging material. So I did like an Instagram call for packaging material, and I got so much packaging material. So I was like, okay, now what am I going to do with this? And it has a natural, it has a natural design of like quilting blocks. So I was in my my little studio and like started quilting just little boxes out of the packing material, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna build a quilt with this, and it just kind of like kept going and kept going. So then I'm like, what else could I build a quilt with? Because I want there to be some kind of a conversation, especially because packaging material is really ugly. Yeah. I actually don't like the packaging material because there's no color. It's
the clear one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like the airlock bags.
Yeah.
Like right there.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you, but it's really ugly, but it's cool. It's cool. But like, how can I make another like quilt? And so I drink a ton of LaCroix. I drink probably like 2 to 3 cases a week. And so I was like, well, I'm going to use these. And so, and it's a natural block too. You just have to cut it in half and it creates a natural block. It has the creases and all that. And then I just kind of started playing with it. I had some friends that I had to call being like, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you please come help me? Because I know that they were quilters. So I definitely like had a lot of community input on this.
That's how it would work too.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. In my ideal world, we all would have just sat around and gossiped and quilted together. But my imagination isn't reality.
Well, it sounds like it ended up being a community effort in some ways. Mm-hmm. In regards to your hometown and that sort of desert space that felt like home to you, how have you been back there since, and like how has it changed, or in terms of industry and infrastructure?
That's a peculiar place about Cleveland, Utah, is that it doesn't change. Even that original like homestead houses are still there, and the main street is still the same, except for it has a really big fire, like it has a big fire truck or what, like a fire station now. Really, it hasn't really expanded except for energy. The expansion of energy has definitely changed the landscape and also just like the environment there. It depends highly on coal, but in the last couple of years, it's been thinking about renewable energy, which I'm like, that's pretty cool. I feel like my whole everybody from where I'm from was so afraid of, losing coal, but it's like, well, how can we think like forward thinking? You're not going to lose your jobs. It's just you're going to have new jobs, and like now they're actually starting to embrace that. And I wish they would kind of apply that same openness to people. Really, nothing has changed. Another thing is like very few people leave. You get born in this very tight-knit, kind of isolated community, and you kind of stay there. Like you have lovely lives, and you start your businesses or you start your families, but you really just stay there. And the same ideas kind of continue. But I don't know. I hope that soon, I hope more better ideas will come around. Not better ideas, but yeah, they are better ideas. I hope there's an openness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like with the renewable energy, things are moving in a positive direction in some ways, I guess. Okay, so your show opens April 28th at 6 p.m. at PlatteForum's Taxi Building Studio. And I'll put the address in here at the end too so people can come and check it out. But yeah, thank you for chatting with me. And is there any last thing you want to put out there?
No, I hope you all can come. And feel free to check out my work at kenziemckenzie.com, and then my Instagram at hashtag or at Kenzie Sitterud, Sitterud, Kenzie Sitterud. Yeah, you can like check out kind of like some like behind the scenes production as well as previous works of art. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kenzie. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to learn more about PlatteForum or make a donation, you can visit the website at platteforum.org. That's PlatteForum.org.